As the world teeters on the edge of an impending fuel shortage, every American must brace for the devastating consequences that lie ahead. Gas stations across the nation are on the verge of empty tanks, and skyrocketing prices are just the beginning. With no end in sight to this crisis, a dark cloud of uncertainty and fear casts its shadow over the nation, threatening our very way of life. Will we be able to avert this disaster, or is it already too late? The writing is on the wall. Energy supply shortages are emerging all around the nation, with gasoline and diesel stockpiles at their lowest levels in a decade. The situation is growing drier by the day, as in less than a month, the national average price of a gallon of gasoline has already risen by over 40 cents. But this alarming increase is merely the tip of the iceberg, as the gas buddy experts anticipate fuel prices will double over the next 30 days.
That more than 10,000 Britons will freeze to death, will die this winter.
The inevitable financial stress will be felt by all Americans, as wallets are stretched thin to accommodate these soaring prices.
And that in the areas that have the most gas stations, there's more competition and the prices are lower.
But the crisis doesn't end there. Supply chain disruptions and price volatility are set to wreak havoc in most segments of the industry. As panic begins to spread, we must come to terms with the fact that we are teetering on the brink of a fuel shortage that could bring our nation to its knees. As if the current fuel shortage wasn't alarming enough, recent developments on the global stage are set to make matters even worse. With the European Union's ban against fuel imports made from Russia's crude oil taking effect in the next couple of weeks, the United States is bracing for a significant impact on its already dwindling fuel stockpiles. The East Coast markets in particular are expected to face dire conditions as they struggle to meet the demands of their population. This ban will trigger a chain reaction across the entire nation as market imbalances exacerbate the already precarious situation. The impact will be felt far and wide, with experts warning that gasoline and stockpiles are already at their lowest in about a decade.
Rise around the Carolinas, and you might notice gas prices differ quite a bit from station to station.
To make matters worse, inventories in most regions still remain below the 5-year average for this time of year. As the clock ticks down, suppliers are scrambling to find creative solutions to prevent the East Coast and the rest of the country from running out of fuel. But with production being the major issue at hand, the odds are stacked against us. As Irana Slav, an industry expert, points out, there is simply not enough refining capacity in the US to ramp up production fast enough to respond to the demand levels. This harsh reality paints a bleak picture for the United States as we brace ourselves for the inevitable domino effect that will send shockwaves throughout the nation, disrupting lives and destabilizing our economy. The root of this crisis can be traced back to the struggling US refining industry, which is grappling with a Herculean task of meeting the skyrocketing demand for fuel.
Saudi Arabia for his meeting with the Crown Prince, but they thought they had a deal on oil supplies and oil.
The nation's refining capacity is simply insufficient to keep up with the insatiable appetite for gasoline and diesel, leaving the United States increasingly vulnerable to the looming fuel crisis.
30 years ago, the average tank replacement cost was probably around $50,000.
This challenge has already manifested in the form of rapidly rising fuel prices. Since the end of last year, the national average price has climbed more than 9%, marking the biggest jump to start of a year since 2009, according to Bespoke Investment Group. With each passing day, the situation grows direr, and the industry analysts are now sounding the alarm that the average price could hit a staggering $4 over the next 30 days. The crisis in the refining industry has far-reaching implications, as the inability to ramp up production fast enough to meet demand levels threatens to derail the entire supply chain.
On a daily basis, 25 million children in our country every day go to school on those diesel-fueled school buses.
Irana Slav highlights this critical issue, stating production remains the big problem, and traders appear to be betting on continued tight supply because of this fact. The consequences of this bottleneck in the refining industry will ripple across the country as Americans face the grim prospect of empty gas stations and skyrocketing prices.
What the price? America's fuel consumption is dropping, and so is the number of gas stations.
Compounding the problem, the refining sector has been hit by a perfect storm of external factors that have hampered its ability to respond to the crisis. Extreme weather events, geopolitical tensions, and shifting global demand have all converged to create an unprecedented challenge for the US refining industry. As we grapple with the harsh reality of the crisis, one thing is clear.
Tripling our cost base for gas, electricity, and also then the pressures for food.
The US refining sector must adapt and overcome these challenges if we are to avert a full-blown fuel shortage that could bring the nation to its knees. As if the refining industry wasn't already under immense pressure, a string of extreme weather events has further crippled its ability to produce the gasoline, jet fuel, and diesel needed to keep the economy running. From freezing temperatures to violent storms, these weather-related disruptions have wreaked havoc on refineries across the nation, adding fuel to the fire of the ongoing crisis. One striking example is Colorado's sole refinery, the Suncor refinery outside of Denver. This facility was forced to halt operations due to freezing temperatures that made it impossible to continue production. When the refinery attempted to restart, it suffered a fire and sustained equipment damage. Suncor has indicated that the refinery could be offline for weeks, and as a result, gas prices in Colorado have surged by nearly $1 a gallon over the past 30 days.
What are we doing to increase the supply of diesel, given that the Energy Information Administration said as of October 14th?
Refineries in other parts of the country have also fallen victim to extreme weather conditions. Consequently, US refineries are operating at a mere 84% of capacity, down from the mid-90% range at the start of December, according to bespoke data. This significant reduction in capacity is placing an even greater burden on the already struggling refining sector. These weather-related disruptions serve as a stark reminder of just how vulnerable the refining industry is to the whims of Mother Nature. As extreme weather events become more frequent and severe, it is crucial that the refining sector builds resilience and adapts to these challenges.
Dwindling profits from gas stations, selling the parcel to a rich developer.
Failure to do so will only exacerbate the fuel crisis, leaving Americans to bear the brunt of shortages and soaring prices. The fuel crisis we're facing is not an isolated issue. The repercussions will reverberate throughout every sector of the economy and the daily lives of Americans. A lack of sufficient fuel could rapidly bring the nation to a standstill, as our society's every fabric is built on the ability to move and transport goods. The cascading effects of the shortages will be felt by every one of us, from the loss of jobs and homes to the shortages of essential goods and services.
A huge percentage of Europe's energy came from Russia. Those imports have now been banned, supposedly to punish Vladimir Putin.
The economy could be pushed to the brink as businesses struggle to keep their doors open, and the nation itself could be plunged into darkness if the energy sector fails. This is a very dire scenario that we are facing, one that must be averted at all costs. The time to act is now, as our future hangs in the balance. As we stand on the precipice of an unprecedented fuel crisis, the spectre of fear looms large over our nation. The challenges we face may seem insurmountable, and the consequences of inaction could be catastrophic. If we fail to address this crisis, we risk plunging our nation into a dark future filled with empty gas stations, skyrocketing prices, and a paralysed economy. Our very way of life hangs in the balance as our ability to move, work, and thrive is threatened by the fuel shortage that grips our country. It is our collective responsibility to face this fear head-on and do everything in our power to avert disaster. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more.